Top of the morning folks, today from the Reddit Rainforest. What are your craziest cab driver stories? Two girlfriends and I decided to take a cab in Peru. We had missed the last bus to our destination for the day and we did not want to wait, although it was a bit expensive. We rented a cab to drive us 1.5 hours to our destination. None of us speak great Spanish, but we could understand a tiny bit. We introduced ourselves. One of my friends' name is Paige. The driver started saying pagina ... which I think means page in Spanish. Then, he started saying something ... which we thought meant vagina. We kept saying we did not understand and tried to talk amongst ourselves. He kept talking and finally pulled out his penis and started masturbating while driving. My friend in the front started screaming and told him to put it away. We would have gotten out of the cab, but we were in the country with nothing and nobody around. We had to endure the rest of the ride with this guy. He pulled it out and tried masturbating a couple more times before we reached our destination. Cab in New York City with 4 or 5 people after a night of heavy drinking. We get in and it's a kid in his early 20s driving. We all end up talking and he's telling us how he just moved here from Ukraine, trying to save money, etc. He seems pretty normal, but when he gets close to our apartment he looks at me and goes, "Wanna see some malarkey?" I say sure. He then proceeds to floor it, pull the e-brake and spin a 180, Ace Ventura style, onto the opposite sidewalk, squeezing literally by inches between a building and a lamppost on the corner, then gunning it half a block, still on the sidewalk, and politely dropping us off at our building's front door, not unlike a boss. Okay, I was working an internship at a place, and it was my second last day at work. However, it was also a buddy's birthday in another city. I had a great idea of calling in sick, getting a buddy to drive me from the city I was in to the city the party was at, then catch a bus back. Getting there was fine. However, after many drinks and sushi, the 8 PM bus time was nearing, and I called a cab. However, the cab took ducking forever to get there, so it was around 7:55 when I got picked up and asked for the man to race to the bus terminal. The driver was of Bangladesh descent, and it was sundown. He calmly explained to me that there was no way I was making this bus. Then he noted it was Ramadan and asked if he could eat. I had no place to be, so I said sure. We wind up going to his place, and I eat dinner with him, his wife and his kids. Awesome home cooked food. Then he drives my ass to another city free of charge. On the way there we discuss his future plans of importing textiles. Man, I live in Cairo and we have some weird cabbies. Once I was going to work and traffic was moving pretty well. All of a sudden, this BMW pulls out right in front of us, driven by some rich ass lady. I guess a servant had just finished washing the car because someone had left a wash rag on the back of the BMW. My cabbie sees this and guns it. He is laughing his ass off and swerving through traffic after the BMW. He motions for me to roll down my window. We're going about 40-45 miles per hour. And he pulls up next to the BMW. He yells for me to lean out and snatch the rag. So now I'm leaning out of a car window with a crazy cab driver laughing maniacally, so giddy about the prospect of a new rag. And the rich lady is none the wiser. Has inching up really close so that the cars are basically rubbing together. And inching closer and closer. Has got a concentration face on now. And I managed to take the rag off the back of the BMW. Now Hez honking his horn to celebrate victory and high-fiving and shouting and flashing his lights and everything. He pulls out his old rag from under his seat. Admittedly, his new one was better, and he goes, "Watch this," and throws it out his window at the BMW. We sped off. That was kind of an average commute. Stumbled into a cab driven by an old Turkish driver at about 3 AM on Hamburg's Reeperbahn. Was very drunk. My apartment was like 20 minutes away. After about 10 minutes of drunken dozing, I looked to my left, and there was an old Turkish woman sitting next to me knitting. Headscarf and shawl on. I was like WTF, as I had not noticed her as she melted into the beaded upholstery. Driver: "Who is this woman?" "She is my wife." "Why is she here?" "For protection." "To protect you?" "No, I have this to protect me." Pulls machete out of door pocket and starts waving it around like the guy in Indiana Jones. One time, my girlfriend and I were taking a cab from Georgetown over to the 9:30 Club in DC to see a Wilco show. We were from out of town visiting and now very accustomed to cab rides. He takes off like a bat out of hell. We are being flung back and forth in the seat from all this race car-esque driving. We begin to hear sirens and my immediate thought is he was getting pulled over for this driving. Nope. There was a fire truck in front of us en route to a call. We notice the cab driver get agitated with this and all of a sudden he veers off on a detour. We are flying down a side street and literally beat the fire truck to the scene of the fire. Cab goes past without missing a beat and eventually drops us off at the venue. He then proceeds to apologize for the delay and taking so long. It was Super Bowl Sunday. I cannot remember who was playing or what the score was, but I was malarkeyed. A bunch of us left the house party we were at and started walking the couple kms back to our houses, which were all pretty close together. I got sidetracked in the apartment's community room where people put malarkey they do not want. I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. Anyway, walked out with a new wooden pepper shaker. One of those massive ones that you twist. Killer find. Dude. So by this time my buddies had made it about a block away from me. I could see M and hear M. But I did not want to catch up to them. Too tired from watching all that football. I tried to walk a little faster. But it was pretty clear I was going to need a cab if I realistically was going to gain any ground on this decidedly Sherpa-esque troop. So I jumped in a cab that was parked on the side of the road. It was sitting there. The light was on. I did not think twice. First thing that hit me was the smell. I said, "Did you just hotbox this ducking cab?" The driver, a Mexican guy who later introduced himself as Art, gave me the best answer I have ever heard in my life. What's the right answer? Next thing you know, he's driving along and I'm using his little taxi driver identification as roach clips. It was awesome. We got back to my pad and I brought my new friend slash driver with me. "Look what I got," I said to my roommates, meaning the cool wooden pepper shaker. They, of course, thought I was talking about the 40-year-old Mexican guy that was all cotton-mouthed and key-eyed. I started hooking the guy up with bud and he would drive me around the city and let me hotbox and drink in the car before the clubs or shows or whatever we were doing. He worked an airport route most of the time. So whenever I had friends coming to Vancouver, I would pick them up with Art. Art and I would be all quiet, not let on that we knew each other, and he'd pull out a massive chonger and just hotbox the malarkey out of the cab. My friends would freak, and it'd be like, "Do not worry about. He probably does not even realize all whispers." It was super funny. Then we'd put it out, and Art would be like, "Do you mind if I hit that?" Something to that effect and my buddies would trip. It was hilarious. My mom's boyfriend drove taxi for a living. He was the awesome driver that everyone wants. And he had a lady prove it to him. He picks this woman off the street because she had waved him down. She gets in and tells him where to go. About halfway through the ride, he gets to a red light. The lady asks him if he was straight. He is. So she asks if she has nice breasts. She lifts her shirt up, exposing perky D's. He says that they are not bad. She fixes her shirt and looks him in the eyes and says, "I'll suck your dick for $3. My mom's boyfriend says, "Sorry, my wife only lets me buy $2 whores." The lady got mad, threw her fare at him, and got out the cab. The only tip he got was the awesome story to tell the world. The taxi driver died 1 month and 3 weeks ago, and this story was told at his funeral. Was in a cab and the driver did not have the greatest English skills, seemed odd with his conversations, and I put it down to his limited English. As we got closer to my place, malarkey got stranger. He told me things I needed to do before I died, and malarkey was crazy. We got a few houses from mine, and he said I'm a straight nurse. I was like, what the duck? Figured he must have some confusion with what he was saying. But then he locks the doors and starts telling me in fairly explicit details about how he raped a nurse and I really must try it. Finally let me out amid laughing and telling me promise he'd think about raping a nurse one day. Was not the most fun I have had as a lone drunken female at 5 AM. A few years ago my ex and I went out drinking. I had had enough and decided to go back to her place and she stayed out with our friends. At the end of the night her and her friend catch a cab home and this cab driver is telling my ex that she is the most beautiful girl she has ever seen and being generally creepy. They drop her friend off first who lives literally 2 streets away from my ex. When they let her out of the cab the driver tells her that he needs to get fuel. Ex protests, saying she's only 2 streets away, but this cab driver insists. He drives her across town to fill up. Easily a 45-minute drive when there is a petrol station minutes down the road. Not to mention they were mere streets away when this cabbie decides to abduct her. She's slowly flipping out while this cabbie is telling her how beautiful she is and giving her his life story. This abduction goes on for close to 2 hours and includes him swapping cars with another driver at the cab depot in the middle of ducking nowhere and pushing her to stay with him at his friend's house. Finally she gets him to agree to take her home. She gets him to pull up at a random house not far from hers and he says, "Here, it'll give you my number. Call me when you get inside so I know you're safe." She takes it and he makes her call it so that he now has hers. She walks up to this random house and sits in the backyard and calls me. Tells me this cabbie has kept her hostage for like 2 hours. She's scared malarkey-less in some random backyard. Gives me the basic location. And he would not pull out of the driveway. At this point I'm wide awake. Getting dressed as him sprinting out the door to get her. I round the corner of the street she was in as this cab is pulling away. But I miss the plate because hair's too far away. She's an absolute mess and bawling her eyes out. When we get home she's telling me the story when this dude actually calls her. I answer and say, who the duck is this? Silence. I end up sitting with her until she cries herself to sleep and I take the dude's number out of her recent calls list and save it in my phone. She begged me not to do anything about it. She wanted to just forget it. The next day I'm at work and telling my boss the story. Worked at a mobile phone shop. We punch the dude's number into the database and his details come up. Name, job address, etc. Over the course of the day we figure out a plan. We activate a SIM card under a fake name. Pop it in one of the shop phones and call this bloke up. Ask him if he remembers us. That he gave us his number a while ago and that we needed a cab that afternoon. We told him to go to an empty parking lot near our shop. When it comes to closing time we shut up shop and my boss parks his van in the lot and I stand around waiting for this dude to rock up. I get in the cab and he goes to turn the meter on and I tell him, oh no, there would not be any need for that. I ask him if he remembers talking to me on the phone last night and his expression changes. I begin to tear him a new asshole, asking him if he likes abducting 18-year-old girls and driving them around scaring the malarkey out of them. Hez absolutely speechless and does not know what to do. I demand his phone. Hez reluctant. AWW, come on man. So I point to the van and say, if you're not going to give me the phone, the guys in that van will make you. At this point my boss sees me pointing at him, so he gets out and starts walking over. This dude's malark eating his pants and hands me his phone. I take his wallet too and take out his driver's license. I tell him I know where he lives and if he ever contacts my ex again I will kick his ass. I keep his license, get out of the car and smash the phone into the concrete and take the SIM with me as well. Tell him facts so I know he does not have her number or any others for that matter anymore, and that has lucky it's not his face. While him smashing his phone my boss is leaning into the driver's side window screaming at this dude. When him done my boss puts his cigarette out on the car's upholstery and we bail out in his van. Easily the most ducked up cab driver situation I have ever heard of / experienced. To sum it up, cabbie abducts my girlfriend. I abduct his anal virginity. After a long night of drinking, a couple of friends and I hailed down a cab. The driver was on the phone and we were drunkenly babbling the whole ride. 5 minutes before we're about to reach our destination, the driver hangs up, looks at us and says, you guys like pussy? We start dying of laughter and the cab driver turns on the screen he had installed in his car. He was playing Brazilian gangbang porn and we immediately die of laughter. To sum it up, I can now no longer fap to Brazilian gangbangs because I laugh too much. Unfortunately that is all there is for this video, but do not worry, there are many more coming. Like and subscribe for more videos from the Reddit Rainforest. Thanks for watching.